I have a combined hour count of about 200 hours across Octopath Traveler and Octopath Traveler 2. When Zero was announced a couple of months ago, I felt that excitement swell up inside me again. It's been almost 3 years since I tucked into the masterpiece that is Octopath Traveler 2, and I am so ready to get back into what I consider to be a cozy blanket. Square have a demo out now for Octopath Traveler 0 where you can play the first 3 hours of the game and your save will carry over on release. I'm going to give a quick look to what you can expect from this game given my 3 hours of playtime for both new players and returning players alike. If you want to support the channel, then please leave a like and subscribe, or if you don't like it, then leave a thumbs down and let me know how it can be better for you. This 3-hour demo is just the prologue of the game, but it does give useful insight into the gameplay, the music, the narrative, and the new village building system. The best place to start would be what this game is. Octopath Traveler as a franchise are HD 2D pixel art classic turn-based RPGs. The two mainline games have been structured as an adventure splintered into 8 hero stories before coming together at the end. Zero is doing this part differently as you create your own character at the start. Square have mentioned in their game synopsis that you can actually recruit up to 30 characters in this game, which is a significant increase on the traditional 8. This was something they did in the free-to-play spin-off Champions of the Continent. This leads to combat shifting from the 4 characters on the field at a time to 8 with a back row and a front row. This is not something I could experience in the demo though, as you only ever had access to a max of 4 characters during the prologue. As for the combat mechanics themselves, they take a heavy influence from the refined system included in Octopath Traveler 2. You have the weak system, which in my honest opinion is the best implementation of it that we've ever seen. In Octopath, you can attack physically or elementally, and each of these is considered a different attack. For physical, it is split by weapon type, so swords, staffs, daggers, etc. And for elemental attacks, it is split by the elements, so fire, wind, ice, etc. Every single enemy has a series of boxes beneath them which upon first encounter will be question marks. You must cycle through the available attacks you have to see if you can trigger a weakness. If you hit the enemy with something they are weak to, their defense will lower, which is that number in the shield next to the boxes. Once this hits 0, they will be stunned for a couple of turns and be more vulnerable to strong attacks. The best thing about this weak system is that once you have uncovered a weakness for an enemy, it will always show up when you encounter them again, so it never feels like a test of your memory, which is great game design. Outside of basic attacks, there are special attacks and learned attacks. I think the learned attacks are new, as I can't remember seeing them in the previous 2 titles. Learned attacks seem to be separate from the job system, so aren't tied down and can be used by anyone, whereas the usual special attacks are a result of the job system. Both of these are tied to the SP bar and will unleash a stronger attack than your basic physical one. Then there is the BP system, which was introduced in Octopath 2. BP, or battle points, accumulate each round and you can use them to power up your attack. A max of 3 BPs can be used at any given time, and if you use the max amount, you will unleash the most devastating attack that your character is able to do given their stats. The combat in Octopath is an extremely satisfying cycle of experimenting with basic attacks, trying to find a weakness, exploiting that weakness, and then unleashing your most deadly attacks when they are stunned. It's easy to pick up and equally fun to perform. As I mentioned, the combat heavily relies on the job system. There are several different job classes that will determine what basic weapons the character will have, but also their stat spread and their special moves that they can learn. For example, there is the cleric, who will have low physical attack and defense, attack with a staff, but then have a large pool of SP and many healing skills and light based attacks to learn. The dancer attacks with a fan and a dagger, as it is a dual wielding class and has high speed and evasion. It works as a support class, buffing your allies while being able to avoid damage. The warrior class boasts high physical attack and defense and is also a dual wielding class, being able to attack with both sword and spear. The specials learned are entirely physical based and means the warriors will be your high damage output. Right now all I can see are 8 job classes which exist in the previous games, and I have only had the ability to choose this for the protagonist and no others, so I'm not sure as to the extent of the job system as of current. Octopath is one of those games where the overworld enemies are not shown on screen, so you will constantly end up in random encounters when wandering about. It isn't too in your face, but this is definitely worth noting for a game that will be upwards of 80 hours. It can start to feel tedious. Luckily, the animations in the gorgeous HD 2D art style are incredible incredible, which makes each encounter pretty on the eyes. The music is excellent from what I've heard so far. There are some instantly recognizable tracks from the older titles, like the battle music for example, but also some new tracks sprinkled in. These traditional turn-based RPGs are often known for their top-tier soundtracks, and Octopath is no different on that front. I do want to draw a particular attention to the voice acting. Albeit sometimes the dialogue lines are cheesy, the voice acting itself is incredibly solid. I feel captivated whenever you hear a character speak. It sounds so clean, especially the three main villains. When they are speaking, you are listening. Like the previous titles, a lot of the dialogue is voiced and only smaller interactions between characters will not be. The story seems to be canon within the Octopath universe, as the village we start in, Wishvale, is having an enkindling ceremony to light the flame of Alfric for protection. Alfric's flame and even the enkindling ceremony itself is mentioned across both Octopath games, so Zero is evidently sticking with this lore. This particular story focuses on the 8 rings that were born to this land from Alfric, so we have a little bit of a Lord of the Rings situation. The enkindling ceremony is brought to an abrupt stop when Titus invades and burns the village to the ground, as well as slaying most of its inhabitants. Your character escapes with the carpenter's daughter Stia with the help of the town's watchful scholar Nomos. After some time has passed, Nomos bears the news that your character is the chosen one, and he gives you one of the 8 rings while tasking you to claim the others. This is where the story opens up and you can choose your own path. There are 3 routes, each relate to one of the 3 villains: the wealthy lady Herminia, the brute who burnt your village Titus and his Scarlet Wing Knights, or the psychotic playwright August. Each of these represent a particular vice that can be tied to evil, wealth, power, and fame. Nomos presses you on which one you want to pursue, and I'm not entirely sure if the option here affects your playthrough, as I chose Fame and August to target, but the other 2 routes still seem like they were open to me, although I didn't try them. Each of these 3 are said to possess a ring of their own, and so I can only imagine that there are 4 more big bads after these ones, as I can't foresee another way to retrieve the remaining 4 rings, unless it is like a Thanos situation and there is one overlord evil entity that has multiple rings that reveals themselves after we topple these initial 3. Anyway, I chose the path of August, and his storyline takes you to his home city's theatre, where he is so adored by his fans and the community that he can get away with murder. Literally. The demo only allowed the first sequence of missions in this questline, so I really only got a taste, but as I said at the top, it feels like a cozy blanket. There are impactful battles against some real nasty people, all displayed in a satisfying turn-based system with dazzling HD 2D visuals. There are plenty of professionally voiced cutscenes which provide a solid structure for the story delivery. I really can't wait to play more. Having Stia as your first party member is for dual effect. She's supposed to be your best friend, which suits the story, but also she is the carpenter's daughter turned carpenter, so is best placed to facilitate the new town rebuilding system that Zero introduces. You do have 2 other party members earlier on in the prologue to help with the larger battles thrown your way, but they leave the town after it is destroyed. I imagine they will return at some point though, as I believe they were in the most recent trailer. The town building so far seemed pretty basic. It is introduced briefly, but enough to get a feel for the system. You collect resources out in the open world and then select structures from Stia that you want to build. You then select the position of this building using grid-based tiles, and that's that. I built a workshop and a house for a villager I found out in the wild in my playthrough. The workshop assisted in allowing me to build more structures, and the villager, once housed, had a background ability where they would be able to collect certain resources. Therefore, it gives me the impression that as you build up the town, it becomes a sort of self-sufficient machine where the more you build, the more supported you become to build more. I am unsure of the story implications, but I can only imagine some structures will be able to enhance your character to be more powerful in some aspects. I could also foresee the background abilities of certain villagers you bring back to go further than basic resource collection and may offer buffs or even rare items. I would also assume that some will become recruitable party members to fight alongside you. One final thing I think is worth noting is the interactions between your character and NPCs. A feature in the previous games was certain abilities where you could get rare items or useful information from townsfolk depending on your job class. A scholar could sleuth, a dancer could charm, a warrior could battle, and so on. From what I have experienced so far in Zero, your custom character can do all of the above, regardless of class, but the percentage's chance will be skewed. I investigated, I charmed, and I battled all to success, and my character Winter is a warrior, so I would have assumed I wouldn't have been able to investigate or charm, but Zero has removed these boundaries. In summary, Octopath Traveler 0 treads the immaculate path that the previous entries have paved for it. It takes all the best parts of the combat and the visuals and puts them together, so I have no worry that it will be a great experience. However, the jury is still out on the new additions. I am currently not blown away with the town building, and I didn't get to try the 8-person battles. The most worrying thing for me was the narrative being less strong, as rather than 8 individual well-written shorter stories, it is an overarching story with a custom character. The demo has squashed those concerns though, as I feel not only connected to the heroes, but so absorbed by the minor interactions experienced so far with the 3 villains. Octopath Traveler 0 releases on December 4th, just in time for the holidays, and I can't wait to play some more and see what kind of journey Winter and her companions go on. I want to see where these villains go, and I want to see how much more satisfying the combat skills can become. If you enjoyed this content, then please consider leaving me a like and subscribe, or if you didn't like it, then leave a thumbs down and I will try to be better next time. Spy the channel for my video on all the best games coming in December, and also my reviews of Ghost of Yotei and Dispatch. Let me know in the comments below if you are looking forward to Octopath Traveler 0, and for everything else, casual gamer, keep it here. Peace and love.